I haven't seen his icon. You know that's for you. Labor and you need factory overheads. So we must have accounts for raw materials, for labor, and for factory overheads. Are you fine with that concept? Now, I was busy explaining the raw materials. You in your business or in the exercise you're going to do, they will tell you if your raw materials account includes indirect material or not. That will be given in, if you have a factory one day, you must inform your accountant, I want my indirect material as part of my raw materials, or I want it as a separate account. I've done this one as part of the raw materials. In my mind, I see the three things we need to make the product. I see that as if that is in three different storerooms, and every time somebody in the factory wants something, they must go to that storeroom to collect whatever it is they need. So what do I say about raw materials? Raw materials, you know, will have a balance at the start of your accounting period. Doesn't matter if it's a year or the start of a new month. Because if there is no raw materials, it means that if the factory now needs something, you're going to tell them, sorry, I don't have it. That means the person who needs the raw material cannot do his job for that time period that you don't have raw materials. So there should be raw material stock at the beginning of your accounting period. Then you're going to buy new raw materials or more. If you buy cash or a check, it will be bank for with a check, and petty cash if you buy a cash. If you buy on account, it will be creditors control. Then if you have to pay transport fees, I show it separately inside here. But you can actually add it to that bank amount. It's up to you, but I like to keep it separate so that I can see this was the price, this is the transport. So actually, if the price was R2, but my transport would work out at R10 per item, it wasn't worth my buy at whatever supplier I'm buying. Do you understand this, people? In real life, if you are a cheese factory, and you know you can get milk, your factory is in Cape Town, you can get milk very cheap in Gauteng. Then you must take into account that that milk must come here. And will it then still be so cheap if you have to pay the whatever truck, it will be a freezer truck or a cold truck that you need to let them drive all the way from Gauteng to your factory here. Do you understand? So that's why I keep it separate, but it doesn't have to be separate. It can be inside one of those amounts as well. But you run a risk if you put it on a cell phone. If you run the risk of, if you add it in there, that if you like me and your calculator hates you, can maybe have it a calculating error as well. Then if you return to the creditor, creditors control. If you return, you want your money back, you will have bank. Then now, the next step, you now need to issue that raw materials to the factory. You have to pay close attention. Whatever raw materials go to the factory must walk a specific route. I just want to see what I need for it. It's over there. Won't you please send out this page? Here. I want to show you the route it was on its way from your storeroom to the factory. What is the accounting route? It's easy. If this is the storeroom and I am the factory, if I want something, I go to the storeroom and I fetch. The physical from the storeroom to the factory is easy, but the accounting route from the factory to the storeroom is not so easy. Let me just get him back for in case. So look at the accounting route. This, what I want to take, this is what the factory tells us. They need 88,000 worth of raw materials. So you need to issue that. The account going to issue it is called raw materials issued. This is, remember, in real life, you will go to the storeroom, you will get the stuff and take it to the factory. but the accounting route is not so simple. So from a raw material stock account, we take it to raw materials issued. From raw materials issued, it must go to direct material cost. And then direct material cost at long last. Sorry, from direct material cost at long last, it goes into the factory. The account for the factory is work in process, work in progress. So even though physically, to get the raw materials out of the storeroom raw material, you just go there and you fetch it, take it to the factory. The accounting route means first take it out of raw materials to raw materials issued. From raw materials issued to direct material cost. From direct material cost to work in process. Now, that obviously means that inside, let me just get this back. It's all good and well for the department to say that we must use Teams, but the Wi-Fi is not, the signal is not strong enough. So that means that inside the raw material stock account, you cannot write direct factory work in progress or work in process, because then you will not get marks. You must show the account you are taking this to. You're taking this to raw materials issued. Are you fine? In my example, I also know inside this includes the indirect material. The indirect material, again, if it's indirect, this is the indirect material, they come from the factory, they fetch it. But that's not how it works in accounting. Indirect material forms part of factory overheads. So that indirect material must be transferred to factory overheads. Do you understand this, people? Even though they take it from the storeroom to the factory, the accounting route is different. Are you all right with this? All right, now labor. For labor, you know that wages or labor account is the same thing. There's a bank amount, and that's normally the money spent on the labor. And that includes the contributions that we, the business, has made. This is now all the money you spend on or everybody that worked for you. So this must be divided into direct labor and indirect labor. The direct labor, you know, is supposed to go to work in progress, but you can't put it in, just made the wrong way around. You can't take it to work in progress or work in process immediately. It must first go to an account called direct labor. So I'm back to that other page. If you have a look at the story about labor, let's go there. So that is your wages. I just need to get this back here for in case it actually records this. There's your wages account. The direct wages must go to an account called direct wages. From direct wages, it goes to an account called direct labor cost. And from direct labor cost, it actually goes into the work in progress or work in process account. Do you understand this? These are the book entries. Are you okay? The indirect labor, by the way, the indirect labor will go to factory overheads. And from factory overheads, it goes into the work in progress or work in process account as factory overhead cost. Do you understand this? Right, let's go back to that picture again. So this is what happens with any other labor. Let's put it back here. Any other labor, if there was labor for sales and distribution, it will go to sales and distribution costs. If there's labor for administration costs, you're going to learn that next year, then that will go not to profit and loss, but to an account called administration cost. And in the end, administration cost, the total goes to your income statement. Selling and distribution cost as a total goes into the income statement, but that next year's work. That's why I didn't do anything further. That's for next year. So as long as you know that whatever wages you have, the direct labor goes to direct labor, the indirect labor goes to factory overheads. Are you fine? Right, inside factory overheads. This is not everything else you use inside the factory. It can have a balance. Most of the time it doesn't have, but for in case that you know it has a debit balance, then everything else that you've used inside the factory, the indirect material, the indirect labor, the salary of the factory supervisor, insurance, rent expense, depreciation on the factory equipment, all of that goes inside factory overheads. Then at the end of the month, end of the year, you need to take all of this. If they tell you all the factory overheads must go to the factory, then you take it to work in progress. If they tell you that 80% must be taken, then you take 80%, the rest will be yours. And these people? Right. So those are your 3 storerooms, one for raw material, one for labor, one for factory overheads. After you've done all of those accounting, then you go to the factory itself. What is in the factory account? Factory account is work in progress or work in process. Please do not call it the factory account. It's just my way to remember, to remind myself that in the factory, I need 3 things to make my product. I need direct material cost, direct labor cost, and I need factory overheads. Right, in the factory, there will be an opening balance. That opening balance are the goods you could not finish yesterday, which was the end of the month or the end of the year. In your factory, there will always be unfinished goods at the start of a new period. Why? Because if you have finished all your goods, remember, in the factory, certain people, the production process is, if we make shoes, somebody must cut the leather. Somebody else must stitch that leather to the sole. Somebody else must make the holes for the laces. Somebody else must polish it, whatever. So if there's no unfinished goods, start of the new year, we start from fresh. It means that the first person in the production process is going to have work. Person number 2, person number 3, person number 4 have to wait for person number 1. And that means that you in your factory is going to pay for person 2, 3, and 4 to sit and wait. Do you understand that? So that is why you have a balance at the beginning of the year, beginning of a month. Because if you do not have a balance, people down the line in your production process has nothing to do. Do you understand this? What do you need in your factory? You need direct material cost. That's why we remember it was issued to raw materials issued. It then went to direct material cost, and in long last it came to work in progress. Can you see that? So in here, if you write direct material, too bad, so sad, no marks, because then you did not follow the accounting route. It's direct material cost. The same with direct labor cost. If you only write wages there or direct labor and you don't write cost afterwards, then it means you did not follow the accounting route, even though your amount is correct. Do you understand that? Factory overheads. Now, this is so you started with things that were not finished. You add, this is everything you need. At the end of the month, you must have produced some goods. So whatever you finish, which is your finished product, goes to an account called finished goods. If it's done, you've completed, you finished producing this, you cannot keep this inside your factory. It must go somewhere else. Do you understand that? That somewhere else it goes to is called finished goods. What is you haven't finished stays inside the factory. And that's the balance, that's your unfinished goods. Next month, you start with the unfinished goods again. Are you fine with that? So I have storerooms, one for direct material, one for labor, one for factory overheads. Then I have the factory, that is my work in progress or work in process. Now, where does my finished goods go to? It goes to the shop because I want to sell it. That was the whole object of me making my goods. So finished goods is like your trading stock account. That is your shop where all your stock is. In your trading stock or in your finished goods, your shop, I see this is my shop. There must be a balance, because if there's no balance, it means I have an empty shop. Who's going to come into an empty shop? I add to my goods the stuff that I manufactured the past period, year, month, doesn't matter. Hopefully I can sell some of that. If I sell it, I must take it to cost of sales. Normally, this will be trading stock. You had a balance, you buy. When you sell, you take it to cost of sales. You still take it to cost of sales because you're still selling it. What you don't sell is your balance at the end of this period. In cost of sales has a balance. That balance is the cost price of all the things that you've sold so far. Normally you have trading stock in cost of sales because you buy a stock. Now it's not trading stock, you made it. So these are your finished goods, stuff that you finished producing. At the end of the year, cost of sales, like always, will be closed off to your trading account. Do you understand the whole cycle? Are you fine? Right, now we have to do an exercise. We're just going to do the important accounts. We're not going to do the routes for direct material, raw materials issued, then to direct material cost, and then we're just going to do a raw materials account. I'm going to do a labor account to make sure, factory overheads, and then, because those are the accounts that's important. Direct material, because next year when you do the production cost statement, you must be able to do a note for direct material cost. You must be able to do a note for direct labor cost. So that's why we do direct labor, the labor account. You must be able to do a note for factory overheads. So that's why we do the account. Then the work in process account and the finished goods account. Those two accounts are replaced by the production cost statement. But if you must first understand the accounts before we can do the statement. So we are going to do those 5, and then cost of sales, you should be able to calculate cost of sales. You will see now why. Now why. All right. This is in chapter 10 in your textbook. So what is your work? I see you again on Monday. So we are going to do an exercise. Activity 10.12. But I need to add balances there because there is, and that is the easiest one. This is on page 361. I'm going to add balances. This is now for the month of July. Because there are no balances, I'm going to add. On the 1st of July, the following balances were there. There was a raw material stock. And that was 5,000 rand, the balance. I want you to start with a balance. So you must do a raw material or direct material. Raw material and direct material is the same thing now. Raw materials and direct material is the same thing. So I want you to open a raw material stock account, please. It has a balance of 5,000 rand on the 1st of July. There was no balance in labor, in wages. There was no balance in factory overheads. There is